Welcome back to another edition of Cape Ann Today. As always, each week we are joined by Taylor Bradford, a reporter for the Gloucester Daily Times. How are you, Taylor?
Good, staying dry. It's so rainy outside, it's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, it's been a big news week. First of all, let's start with the Redacted Report.
Right, so if you guys know, as we've continued to follow the investigations after two city employees and one former city employee filed hostile work complaints against Mayor Safathu Romeo taken earlier this year. An investigation ensued. The investigation concluded, and the full report done by the outside legal was not being released, and the city kept telling us that they were not going to release it after we filed a public records request for it. After we appealed with the state said that they had to give it to Gloucester Daily Times and make it public for everybody. So then the city gave us the document with redactions of third parties, languages, and any exhibits that were noted. Chip Payson, the city's legal general counsel, noted that the reason for doing so was to prevent personal embarrassment from those involved. And so, the report that was given to us and to the public is very much more detailed, and that whole thing can be found on our website. I'm not going to get into specifics because it's a lot, and I think it shows a lot of truth to different situations that added to the overall complaints, and showing actions of the mayor and those other parties involved. And so that can again be found on our website as we're all looking more into the situation. But then the question still remains, what is the full narrative? Because it was redacted. There are still redactions in place in this document, not telling the full story. And so actually the Gloucester Daily Times has sent out another appeal to the state requesting that the city hand over the full document, no redactions, including the exhibits, because there's a lot of he said, she said situations that, you don't know who those people are. And a lot of those people who know that they are involved in those incidences are still calling for the full narrative to be published. And so we're looking to find out the full narrative, and when that comes out, we will write more in depth of what the entirety of the investigation report holds. But we're going to wait until we get that. Hopefully, if the state allows for that document to be published in its full entirety. So we're looking forward to kind of seeing what that has to say, how the story develops. Again, it's a lot of just more context to a story that we have reported on before. So again, putting the pieces of the puzzle together of understanding the complaints, the situations, and the investigation that ensued because of those complaints. So we will keep you guys updated as we find out more situations. Again, the three complaints were filed by Harbor Master TJ Shimataro, Community Development Director Jill Cahill, and former HR Director Donna Leet. I was able to speak with the attorneys of Donna and TJ, and they both said that they're wanting to see the full report, and they're waiting to hear, and that's what really initiated the Gloucester Daily Times to file another appeal, was hearing that they weren't satisfied with the documents that were released, and realizing that this story really needs to be told in full. So we're looking forward to that, and we are looking more into the story, and we'll keep you guys updated as it unfolds.
Gotcha. Okay, other news from City Hall. Let's talk Cupcakes.
Yeah, so it's a sweet story that left a lot of sour taste in a lot of people's mouth. And it's something I've been mulling over.
Touche.
The city has spent more than $13,000 for investigation of an incident involving two counselors that occurred during a public meeting in March. The money was paid without the knowledge of the city committee that signs off on such expenditures, and that committee is the Budget and Finance Standing Committee that has a few counselors on that committee. So earlier this month, the city's CFO, John Dunn, provided that committee with invoices totaling to $13,479 from the New Hampshire-based attorney Pastori Kranz for the investigation. And Dunn mentioned at that meeting that the city had already paid that money, those invoices, and that they should be expecting another invoice for that investigation coming soon. However, no one has seen this investigation. I know that Melissa Cox, who's the chair of that committee, noted at that meeting that she's spoken to Holly Doug Willow of the personnel department, and Holly had mentioned how her correspondence with the outside legal who done the investigation said that they would have the report done by July. But July has come and passed and no one's seen the investigation. No one knows who initiated the investigation, and trying to understand more of why it cost the city almost $14,000 to conduct this investigation, which brings us to the narrative of what's being investigated. Again, so back in March, during an ordinance and administration standing committee meeting, Councilors Melissa Cox and Jennifer Holmgren, sitting in for Councilor Steve LeBlanc, went back and forth about parliamentary procedure, about who can make motions or not. During their back and forth, Cox told Holmgren that she was just an alternate cupcake. And then that word cupcake kind of held on for a while. Cox then apologized briefly while City Clerk Joanne Sinos was, trying to explain the procedure for motions and amendments. But it appears that, Jen Holmgren felt that they need to bring some humor into the situation. So at the following O&A meeting, she popped up onto her Zoom screen, Holmgren did, with a cupcake in hand and proceeded to eat it during the entirety of the meeting, later posting a photo to Facebook with an explanation that she ate it on screen as a response to what she felt was disrespectful behavior. So there's a lot of back and forth, and I like what Scott Memhard, one of the counselors on the BNF committee, noted, that he feels like it seems like a relatively innocent interchange between counselors that was in a public meeting has spun out of control and is frankly embarrassing. He continues, this is compounding embarrassment with the formal investigation. So counselors go back and forth all the time during meetings. They disagree, and a lot of people would say that those disagreements are what makes a city council really be able to have good communication. Again, this was a really unfortunate situation where it was not good communication, and both sides, had disagreements. But those incidences resulted in an investigation that is now costing taxpayers over $13,000. Now, I know $13,000 with a budget that's, a lot more than thousands of dollars might seem like a minute amount of the budget, but still that's quite a lot of money for something. And I know John McCarthy, another counselor who's on that committee, noted that these are public officials, they're not city employees. So his question is, he has many questions, but a few of them are, one, they're public officials, so why is it done in confidentiality when the situation was done at a public meeting? So shouldn't anything following be done in the public, since with taxpayers' money? Also wondering who's heading the investigation, who had the authority to instruct this investigation, and how is the city already paid for it if the BNF is a committee that, oversees the interchange of money. And so they never signed off on this, and they've never seen any of the documents for this. Holly Doug Willow did tell me yesterday that and I quote, that the bill to date from last fiscal year for this investigation has been paid through the personnel department. So that's the money information that we have about the money, of kind of where at least some of it has come from. And we are eager to hear more at upcoming meetings, potentially, of, a little bit more of what's happened, why it happened. John McCarthy had a list of questions, so did Scott Memhard, who both brought this up as a request to the mayor to find out more. At the last meeting, John Dunn was the only person from the city on that meeting, and so they're hopeful that somebody from the mayor's office might be able to come on and speak, or somebody from HR or legal. So we are awaiting more information about that, but that's the cupcake incident. I wish it wasn't one of the big headlines for the week, but it is. And so we'll follow it more as it comes.
Okay.
Taylor, I just want to emphasize how important commas are in this story, because I believe Melissa Cox said, "You're just an alternate, comma, cupcake." Is that how? So she was calling Jen Holmgren a cupcake, or was she saying, "You're just an alternate cupcake"? Like, there are lots of cupcakes here, and you're just one of them.
That's a good question. And I think when I was listening to the meeting, I interpreted it to be a cupcake in there, a comma in there.
Okay. Right.
Referencing, as since Jen Holmgren was standing in for a committee member who wasn't present, she was saying, you're just an alternate. She paused and she said cupcake, but these are formalities within a greater picture. I guess the question we'd be asking is, there's that incident, and then there's the response to that incident. And so,
Yes.
there's a lot of back and forth of, who was wrong in the incident. And again, I think it's more of now is dealing with the financials more than the incident.
Yeah,
itself.
right. And what is going on with that? It's very confusing, isn't it? What's happening with that $13,000?
Yeah.
Buy a lot of cupcakes. Okay, Taylor, we only have a minute or two left. Do you want to touch upon how the city is now managing COVID?
Yeah, so the city again is continuing to work to mitigate the spread of COVID, especially with the new variant Delta. And we had a breakthrough case of COVID-19 in City Hall this week, where Chris Sicarance, the assistant to the CAO, made an announcement on Tuesday that he has contracted COVID even after getting both Pfizer doses of the vaccine. He noted that he has mild symptoms and he's home resting and quarantining until he is COVID free, and he is safe. And he also told me how he is grateful for his dog Lulu, who has been a great nurse during this time as he recovers. But also noting too that at City Hall they take health safety precautions very seriously, and when folks don't feel well, they should isolate, get tested, and follow protocols just like Chris did. And so he also emphasized that people should still get vaccinated, that vaccinations are what's keeping people out of hospitals. And so, he's able to stay at home and recover there rather than going to a hospital because he got the vaccine. And so he's noting that since he made the announcement on Facebook earlier this week, he's been getting a lot of pushback from people saying that, the vaccine, why should I get the vaccine if you're proving to me that, people still get sick? Again, his argument and his calling, his urging is that, it's keeping people alive. Even if they do get sick. And the mayor echoed his words, explaining that, they're following the CDC protocols, and the City Hall is still open. And as they continue to do it, they are taking the necessary precautions to ensure that they all stay healthy, and those who all come through City Hall also stay healthy.
Gotcha. Okay, we have about 30 seconds left. Do you want to preview an important story born from your trail column?
Yes. So last week I did a call of the wild looking for submissions for people to submit prose, poetry, songs, illustrations of their experiences in the woods and reflections. And I am really grateful for all the responses I received. And one of them in particular is Heidi Wakeman. She provided me with 24 poems. Each one is named after a Babson boulder over in Dogtown. And they are her poetries, prose, haikus, reflections of lots of different things. But one is an experience she had of being held at gunpoint at a young age and being raped, and the reflections that come from after that experience. And I will leave it at that, leaving for her words to really be what is being read and understood and heard in this narrative. And so if you want to read those, you can go to our website, gloucesterdailytimes.com, to read more about kind of her reflections after that incident.
Okay, great work as always, Taylor. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Back once again for another edition of Cape Ann Today with Erika Brown, the publisher and editor of The Cricket. How are you, Erika?
Hey guys, how are you?
We're good.
Okay, some big news right off the top, mask mandate for the schools.
Yeah, this week on Tuesday night, the school committee met, and we already know that back to school is going to be full-time and in person. That was already decided, and that's going to be a week from this coming Wednesday. That's back to school, September 1st. Mm-hmm. So that was already decided. But a big thing that was decided was they voted 6-1, I believe it was. Forgive me if I'm wrong, I'm almost positive. To be everyone, universal masking has been decided. So everyone's going to have to wear a mask. They were just following. I mean, to me, that's not so, it was controversial. And yet to me, they're following the CDC guidelines for back to school. Kids under 12 can't be vaccinated until after the FDA approves the vaccines. And that's coming in October. So I think they're just erring on the side of caution. Plus, these students have already done this. This is exactly how they went back to school in the spring. So it's just picking up where they left off. I think that's what's happening. I don't know. Who else made the decision on Cape Ann?
Rockport did. Rockport is all masks for everyone. Yeah, and in public buildings also.
And the decision on Gloucester is imminent. And then also sidebar is the largest teachers union in the state is proposing that all eligible students get vaccinated and all employees of public schools and colleges are vaccinated too. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird time right now because it's kind of a moving target, but yes, it's definitely going in that direction. And I mean, they consulted with the health teams in Essex and Manchester and the pediatrician for the school district, Joanne Graves, and the school nurses. Everyone was in agreement that this was the right way to go.
So where was the controversy? You mentioned that there was controversy.
It's the
Okay.
it's not anti-vaxxers, it's the anti-maskers.
Okay.
They
All
just they don't want it. And I guess it was a minority though, let's face it. It was a minority voice, but a loud one. But I think the school district is pretty confident in its decision. And I think that sound thinking, if it's a little conservative, what's the downside?
Right.
Tell me.
I know. Particularly when lives are at stake. Yeah.
So Erika, you want to roll into something like other great things young people are doing since we're on the subject
Oh
here?
my God, we have two really, and it wasn't by design, but we have two great stories about two young people from Manchester and Essex doing some really interesting things. Now, first of all, I'm going to bring up Shane McLeod. He is a graduate. He graduated from Manchester Essex High School 4 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago. But in any case, he chose to go into the Navy and not to go on to college. And we just got word that he is going to be assigned now, and this is very prestigious, on a nuclear submarine. It's very, very hard work. And he's going to be aboard the USS New Hampshire. I believe that's what it is. Yes, it's the USS New Hampshire. And he is deploying out. And I think it's a big milestone. And he's 22 years old. And congratulations to Shane. Over in Essex, we have Alice Schweitzheimer. I have to read that actually because it's like a crazy spelling of the name. Schweitzheimer, I believe it is. She is an intern and has been this summer at the Essex Shipbuilding Museum, and apparently she has been just this distortion wave. Like if she worked for me, I'd be like, I wish I could clone her. Anyway, she's been going through all the archives of Dana Story, who, when he died, he wrote a book, he wrote a very seminal book on Essex shipbuilding, and he's from the Story family. And he left a considerable archive when he died in 2005 about all of his research on every ship that had been built through Essex. And of course, that's a big deal. And she's been going through them and really cracking them, and has apparently done an amazing job with something that has been wanted at the museum, but they haven't been able to focus on. So she's been great.
Very cool.
I love stories like that.
Well, let's speaking about research. Researchers have recently visited Manchester, correct?
Oh yeah, I guess we're on a theme, right? Young people doing really great things. Now, when I call these people young, that's because I'm old.
Not really.
They're actually PhD candidates from UMass and science researchers from UMass Boston. And they were up in Manchester Harbor as part of this pretty significant research project they're doing about salicornia. Have you ever heard of salicornia?
Yeah, I have. I have cooked with them.
Okay, yes, okay.
Oh, not cooked. I have put them in my salad. I don't really cook them. They're fresh.
It does not sound like great food stuff. I'll just let that in off the top.
Well, most people think it's a form of seaweed. It's really a marine plant, almost like a grass, and it grows in salt marshes in New England primarily. And it's called sea beans. That's what people know them, not as salicornia, sea beans or glasswort. Little interesting trivia. Where did they get the name glasswort? Right?
That I do not know.
I'm going to tell you, because it's actually related to the research a little bit. In the Middle Ages, when they were making glass, blowing glass, as a fixative, they would burn salicornia because it holds in pods salt from the salt. It pulls salt from the water, and then it's a pure form of salt. So when you burn it, you have salt ash, and you can actually use it in glass blowing, therefore glasswort.
Huh.
So
everything back then.
Well, exactly. So related to that, and it's not surprising then the suspicion is that just the way this plant pulls salt out of the water, it also pulls out, they believe, heavy metals, lead, things like that. So you do the math. Does this have the power to really help pollution? That's the question. Now, they do not have an answer for it. So anybody who's saying, oh yeah, this is going to save us, let's therefore save the salicornia, please withhold that until these people do their research. They're taking samples, 1,000 of them between Cape Cod and Rye, New Hampshire. Manchester was a stop last week. They took the samples, and it's going to be part of looking into the DNA of the plants, which I'm so impressed by that. But there you go. But here's the thing, and it's funny, Heather, you just said that you put it on your salad, right?
I've had it in a salad. Yes, right. And I'm going to stop.
Exactly.
I'm not going to do that anymore. Yeah.
No, because I was thinking, I asked them about that because foragers, salicornia and sea beans are big with foragers. And I said, well, should we be foraging these things if we suspect they might be really good at absorbing lead?
Right. Heavy metals. Are we just having a heavy metal salad? Therefore, right.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah, and she said, know where your seawort comes from, I guess, or, it's know where it comes from. Glasswort, not seawort. Know where your salicornia comes from. She said, I would think twice. I would really be sure I know where it's coming from. So
yeah, I know that people who have tried to desalinate water and, extract the salt from certain areas, it's a no-no because there is so much bad stuff in that salt. You would never want to consume it. So you think about that same salt being absorbed by our sea beans. It's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, or maybe it is, and I don't want to.
Yeah,
right. But maybe it is, but it's an unknown, and so that's exactly what she was saying to me. It's an unknown. If it's not an unknown, do it. If you know where it comes from, do it, and if not, maybe let it pass.
Right, exactly.
I'm with you.
What's it taste like?
Salty. It's crisp and salty, and it has like a snap to it.
Snap, exactly. I wasn't going to say a crunch, but yes, it's like got that snap to it. Great.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it'd be easy to cultivate, right? Seems pretty simple to. Could you turn it into some sort of invasive?
It's very plentiful in New England, in salt marshes, in the right circumstances. And I would imagine that they're also, because they're so bright green, they're also like seaweed, very, very nutritious.
Yeah, right. Lots of chlorophyll or something. Yeah.
Well, let's stay in the water, Erika, and let's talk about the Manchester Club cruise.
Oh my God, the Manchester Club cruise! It was aboard the Beauport Princess. And it was 175 people. It was the Manchester Club, which we've talked about the Manchester Club before. It's one of my favorite clubs. I hope it never decides to accept women. I'm on record. It's a fraternal club that's been around since 1905. And I mean, it's got a lot of history. And the best part about it, it's really an eating club that has speakers, and then they give out some scholarships. So they really do give back to the community, but they cook each other meals at the American Legion once a month before COVID. And what I love about it is it's really the old guard of Manchester, and you can have, all comers. You can have the snootiest person sitting next to, the biggest non-snoot, and it's all good. So they had their 115th anniversary last year during COVID, so they had to put it off a year. So let's call it +1. And they just had a great time. It was like listen to this, open bar. They had shrimp and lobster and crab, and then, this incredible feed for the main course and all this stuff. It was beautiful. $60. I thought it was the best deal in town.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Why aren't we starting our own eating club?
I love it. I think they're great. Somebody said to me, well, they don't allow women in the line getting in. And I looked at them and I said, exactly. That's a good thing. Don't you want a place for the guys to go and then just, go over there. Go over there for a while.
I'm all for that. I agree with you. But let me ask you this. Are there young people there, Erika?
Yeah, I mean, the youngest, my favorite, if I think of, again, what do I think of as young? I think the youngest people who belong are probably in their late 40s. So that's really not young.
Right.
But the clubs ebb and flow and they change. But one of my favorite things that happened was Jeff Gilson, who is, he's a former president, and he's my age, actually. He's in his 50s, and he got there late because there was really bad traffic because of a bad accident on 128. So I don't want to say anything, but he got there late. The boat waited for him, and the entire boat watched him as he raced into the parking lot, hopped out of his car, popped the truck, and changed in the parking lot in front of everybody. And we all gave him a big,
That's awesome.
So that shows some spirit. Yeah.
It's a good vibe. It's a good time.
Hey, fun stuff this week, Erika. Let's do it again next time around.
Bye, guys.
Bye.